Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to POWERGRID Infrastructure Investment Trust H1 FY22 earnings conference call hosted by ICICI Securities Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Rahul Modi from ICICI Securities. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Modi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the H1 FY22 post-result conference call of POWERGRID Infrastructure Investment Trust. This is the first ever call of the InvIT post the successful IPO. We have with us the senior management represented by Mrs. Seema Gupta, Non-Executive Chairperson, Mr. A.K. Singhal, Non-Executive Director, Mr. Purushottam Agarwal, CEO, Mr. Amit Garg, CFO, along with other senior officials from the management. And we've got a special invitee, Mr. Taj Mukarram, Director Finance, POWERGRID, which is the sponsor. I would like to hand over the floor to ma'am, who will give her initial remarks, post which we can have a Q&A session. Thank you, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rahul. Good afternoon, everyone. At the outset, I, on behalf of POWERGRID Infra Transmission Limited, the investment manager to PGINVIT, would like to extend my best wishes to all for the ongoing festive season and hope all have been keeping safe, and would also like to thank all participants for sparing time from their busy schedule to attend this call. I welcome you all to first ever analyst call of POWERGRID Infrastructure Investment Trust, which got listed earlier this year on May 14. Further, I have with me Mr. A.K. Singhal, Director PUTL, Mr. Purushottam Agarwal, CEO PUTL, and Mr. Amit Garg, CFO PUTL, and other senior officials of PUTL. I would also like to extend a hearty welcome to Mr. Taj Mukarram, Director Finance POWERGRID, the sponsor of PGINVIT. Yesterday, PGINVIT announced its unaudited financial results for the half year ended 30th September 2021 and also its first ever distribution in line with its distribution policy. The results for the half year period ended September 30, 2021 and the distribution details have been disclosed on both the stock exchanges. A presentation on H1 FY22 results of PGINVIT has been uploaded on the website and may please be referred. I do not propose to go through the same slide by slide in the interest of time. To begin with, I would first like to convey a big thanks to the entire investor and analyst community for the very successful initial public offer of PGINVIT, which is the first InvIT from a CPSE or any Government of India entity and is also the largest public InvIT issue so far. We are humbled by the confidence reposed in us by the presence of diversified investor groups comprising global pension funds, foreign portfolio investors, domestic mutual funds, domestic insurance companies, national pension scheme funds, provident funds, and non-institutional investors in the anchor book and the public offer. PGINVIT has started its journey by acquiring 74% shareholding from POWERGRID in each of its 5 power transmission TBCB SPVs in interstate transmission segment, comprising 5 operational projects including 11 transmission lines with a network of about 3,700 circuit kilometers and 3 substations with 6630 MVA transmission capacity. Powered by fully operational and revenue generating transmission assets, having sound operational track record with the high availability, assurance in the form of backing of India's largest and the world's 3rd largest transmission company, POWERGRID, as its sponsor, as well as its project manager, and 35-year contract period under TBCB mechanism, and advantage of availability-based tariff and large pool of sponsors TBCB assets and debt-funded acquisition strategy, PGINVIT aims to provide consistent, stable, and visible returns to its unit holder. The sponsor, holding 15% in PGINVIT, continues to stand firmly behind it and has granted to PGINVIT and the investment manager a royalty-free license to use the POWERGRID trademark and logo. The presence of a sponsor in the analyst call today is a testimony to the continued interest and commitment of sponsor towards PGINVIT. You are already aware that we have announced our maiden distribution of rupees 4.50 per unit. The distribution is 100% of the NDCF of the trust in line with the distribution policy and SEBI regulations, which stipulates not less than 90% of the NDCF to be distributed to the unit holders. Going forward, the distribution shall be declared and made not less than once every quarter. Now I will touch upon the highlights for the half year ended September 30, 2021. During the half year period ended September 30, 2021, PGINVIT came out with its initial public offer of its unit, which opened on April 29, 2021 and closed on May 3, 2021. And the units of the trust are listed on the NSE and BSE since May 14, 2021. The initial public offer of rupees 7735 crore comprised of a fresh issue of approximately 4993 crore of PGINVIT, which was utilized to provide loans to SPV for repayment of existing debt in the 5 SPVs and offer for sale of approximately rupees 2742 crore by the sponsor. Pursuant to the IPO, PGINVIT acquired and allotted about 41 crore units at an offer price of rupees 100 per unit, amounting to rupees 4106.51 crore to POWERGRID as consideration for 74% equity stake in each of the SPVs. The balance 26% stake in each of the SPVs is held by the sponsor in accordance with the TSA conditions and shall be acquired by PGINVIT going forward. Now, touching upon the operations, the monthly availability of each of the SPVs during the period April to September 2021 was in excess of target availability. SPV-wise, the average availability for 6-month period has ranged from 99.91% to 100%. This data is on provisional basis as the monthly availability certificates for this period are awaited from the respective RPCs. Now, pursuant to the IPO in April-May 2021, PGINVIT acquired 74% stake in each of the 5 SPVs from POWERGRID, and therefore the financial performance pertains to the period from May 13, 2021 to September 30, 2021, that is about 4.5 months. Now, if you look at the numbers, in the current financial year, for the period under September 30, 2021, the total income on a consolidated basis at the trust level was about rupees 522.54 crore, which included rupees 512.66 crore of revenues from operations and rupees 9.88 crore of other income. Operating expenses at the trust level stood at about rupees 31.97 crore. The NDCF calculated at SPV level have been provided along with the consolidated financial results disclosed on the exchanges. The cash flows from the SPVs are in the nature of interest income and dividend. More than 90% of the NDCF of the SPVs has been upstreamed to PGINVIT by September 30, 2021, in line with the InVIT regulations and the trust distribution policy. The NDCF of PGINVIT for the year ended September 30, 2021 works out to rupees 409.62 crore. Yesterday, we announced our maiden distribution to our unit holders. The distribution amount is 100% of the NDCF at the PGINVIT level as against at least 90% as stipulated in the regulations and our distribution policy, and works out to rupees 4.50 per unit, and same shall be paid in accordance with the regulation. The distribution per unit comprises interest component of rupees 3.02, taxable dividend component of rupees 0.96, and non-taxable dividend component of rupees 0.52. PGINVIT has no external borrowings currently, therefore providing significant headroom for funding future acquisitions entirely through debt. The trust continues to enjoy highest credit ratings, AAA with stable outlook from all the 3 rating agencies, namely ICRA Limited, CRISIL Ratings and CARE Ratings. Now, if you look at the outlook, in the current financial year, PGINVIT intends to acquire POWERGRID's remaining 26% stake in one of the SPVs, which is POWERGRID Vizag Transmission Limited, which is completing 5 years of its commercial operation in January 2022. The acquisition process would include valuation by an independent valuer in accordance with the InVIT regulations and shall be dealt with in accordance with the PGINVIT policy on related party transactions and shall be approved by the investment committee and or the unit holders as the case may be in accordance with the policies and governance framework of PGINVIT. Further, PGINVIT is also evaluating acquiring additional revenues accruing to 3 of the SPVs, namely PPTL, PWTL and PJTL, which have been approved by CRC under change of law, on which a sponsor has a right. Based on respective CRC orders, the additional annual transmission charges on account of change in law are 3.445% for PWTL and 2.787 for PPTL. In case of PJTL, CRC has approved cost escalation subject to prudence check by LTTC. If approved, this would increase the annual transmission charges for PGTL by about 5.89% as per TSA condition. Now I would like Mr. N. Taj Mukarram, Director of Finance at POWERGRID, to share the views of the sponsor, that is POWERGRID. So I hand over to Mr. Taj Mukarram.
Participants, please stay connected. Line for the management got dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay connected while we rejoin the management back to the call. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We have the management for the line for the management reconnected. So you may go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon all. Thank you very much, ma'am. I must thank PGINVIT for inviting POWERGRID as a special invitee to their maiden analyst call. The occasion is an opportunity for POWERGRID also to thank the investors who, by their overwhelming response, despite the second wave of pandemic, ensured grand success of the initial public offer of PGINVIT, the largest InVIT or REIT IPO till date. The overall 4.83x subscription is a testimony to the confidence in brand POWERGRID across diverse investor segments, and POWERGRID management is grateful for their sustained confidence in us. We would like to share that POWERGRID is cognizant of the faith reposed by the investors and would like to assure the investors that as a sponsor and project manager, POWERGRID is fully behind the PGINVIT for sustained value creation for its investors. I would also like to congratulate PGINVIT for hosting an analyst call post declaration of results, carrying forward the culture of investor engagement, which is always a priority at POWERGRID also. The chairperson of PGINVIT has already mentioned about the sale of balance 26% stake of POWERGRID in one of the SPVs later this year, and also in the balance 4 others going forward. This is more about completing a process of valuation, etc., and we are hopeful that these transactions would also be completed as per the timelines. We are also evaluating the sale of additional revenues accruing to PWTL, PPTL and PJTL on account of change of law and on which sponsor has the right presently. Further, you are also aware that asset monetization of brownfield infrastructure assets is a priority area of Government of India, and it has already brought out national monetization pipeline, which includes approximately 45,200 crores of rupees of monetization from POWERGRID's transmission assets. The target for next FY of monetization is about 7,500 crores for POWERGRID. POWERGRID is in the process of appointing a consultant to assist in carrying out the next set of monetization under the NMP stipulated framework, wherein monetization of rights but not ownership is one of the key attributes in which assets are required to be handed back at the end of transaction life. As regards POWERGRID's TBCB portfolio, I'd like to share that apart from PUTL, which is the investment manager of POWERGRID, PGINVIT PowerGrid has 8 operational SPVs, out of which 7 are interstate and 1 is intrastate, and 10 other construction SPVs, out of which 7 are ISTS and 3 are interstate. The aggregate estimated cost of these SPVs is more than 22,000 crores, and these SPVs are envisaged to be available for monetization in line with the TSAs progressively between FY23 and FY25. I believe PGINVIT will be able to provide consistent, stable and visible returns to its unit holders, riding on the power of AAA, the assets, assurance and advantage as mentioned by ma'am earlier. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, Taj. And now I would like to hand over to moderator for further proceedings.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Participants, you may press star and 1 to ask a question. Ladies and gentlemen, you may press star and 1 to ask a question. The first question is from the line of Swarnil Maheshwari from Edelweiss Financial Service. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello sir, good afternoon and thanks for the opportunity and congratulations for your maiden earnings call. A couple of questions over here. The first question is that if you look at the NDCF, we have retained about close to about 7 odd crores. We just wanted to understand, is this really for the purpose of smoothing of the distribution curve or for some other purpose? That would be my first question.
The amount received, as I said in my presentation, these 3 SPVs have filed petition before the CRC for seeking the additional amounts on account of change in law, which has been approved by CRC. So in terms of SPA, the PowerGrid holds the right on this revenue. So we have held some amount in these SPVs as a PGINVIT is planning to acquire these additional revenue streams from PowerGrid. Hence, these amounts have been retained towards these.
Okay, so this 7 crore actually pertains to PWTL and the other company, the other SPV which has already got the change in law status. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So, ma'am, in future also, if I understand this right, I believe that this is for the first 4.5 months, and I believe in future also this would actually continue. So, whatever amount till the time PGINVIT doesn't buy the remainder of 26%, this amount will continue to be retained. Is that the correct understanding?
No, this is for acquiring the extra revenue stream which has incurred to these 3 SPVs. So if once we value and we take those amounts, then they will this retained amount will be used for acquiring those earnings.
Okay. All right. And secondly, in his opening remarks, Mr. Taj, he mentioned one important thing, where he said that transfer of right is important than transfer of ownership. I mean, just a bit lost. What exactly did you mean by that, sir?
Ownership and distribution. Owner distribution.
Yeah. Are you asking about the change in the Government of India strategy that instead of the assets to be monetized under boom, they are now being proposed to be under boot? Is that your query?
Yeah. That's right, sir.
Yeah, the initial portfolio of assets, which were 5 TBCBs at that time, the policy in place was that as we have acquired these TBCBs on boom model PowerGrid, they could be monetized on the same model of boom, which means that the transmission licensee will have the ownership of these 5 assets forever. But post this monetization, recently Government of India has come out with a national monetization plan, which is a public document you can also check up, in which it has been clarified that because of the sensitive nature of the transmission assets being mesh network and being a key infrastructure asset, it has been decided that instead of boom model, the assets have to come back to the owner after a transaction period of, let us say, 25 years, which is the license period initially. So instead of boom model, practically it becomes a boot. That is why we are telling that it will not be on the ownership basis that will be transferred. Only the rights to the tariff will be the key of transaction for monetizing these rights only. And after the transaction period, the asset of the SPV will have to come back to the owner, that is POWERGRID.
Got it, sir. Sir, I mean, there is a provision of this 25 plus 10 years. So would that stay, or that is also changed to 25 years only?
Yeah, if it is a 35 period, then it will be 35 period. Whatever is the framework decided for the TSA is for 35 period, so it will be for 35 years. But whatever is the 25 or 35, after that the rights have to be coming back.
Right. And does this also mean that the terminal value, if there is at all any value for that project, this will be actually entitled to the sponsor because this is essentially going back to the sponsor itself.
You're right.
Okay, so the terminal value will be enjoyed by the sponsor now.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is for the projects which are already commissioned, these guidelines are applicable, or for the projects which will be constructed now, henceforth?
No, whatever asset monetization will happen henceforth will happen like this.
Acha, okay. Right. Got it, sir. Sir, thank you so much. I have more questions, so I'll come back in queue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pratik Kothari from Unique PMS. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity, sir. Maybe can we highlight what kind of distribution, I mean, are we giving any guidance for distribution maybe for this year or for maybe coming few years? And how would this be divided between interest and dividend?
It will be in the same order, the higher single digit or a lower two digit going forward, the distribution.
Okay. And we'll be able to maintain this for how long?
No. If you see, this time also we have distributed 100% at the trust level and more than a stipulated figure of 90% at the SPV level, and the whatever amount we have retained for a certain purpose. So we feel that going forward, the same philosophy would be followed.
Fair enough. And in this high single digit or low double digit, we'll be able to maintain this for how long? Because I believe the tariff curve will be a downward sloping, right?
It is very difficult to say at this time, but we are looking at the growth opportunities for this trust. So our aim is to go for the same level.
Okay. Fair enough. And this growth opportunity would not be restricted to acquiring assets from our sponsor, right? We'll be open to do it otherwise. Yeah.
Not only from the sponsor, from the other utilities if they come out. So we'll be looking at all the opportunities which are available in the market.
Okay, fair enough. And just the current 5 assets that we have, I believe the average tenure left there would be in the range of about 30 to 33 years, right?
Yes, 31 years, 30 years, it is like that.
Okay, fair enough. And this 5 assets, we have the ownership of this going forward. At least if something comes from POWERGRID, that will be only for those 30 odd years. We'll have right to the tariff, but not the ownership.
No, because this remains with the trust. So then what will happen in the future depends upon what upgradation and all is needed. The call will be taken at the end of the life of these assets.
Yeah, no, my question was the 5 assets which we currently own, the 5 which we have, for that the ownership is with us.
Yes.
it's only going forward that we might shift from boom to a boot model.
Yeah, because this is as per the monetization policy announced by Government of India.
Yes,
but for this, the ownership is with the trust.
Okay, fair enough. And just last question from my understanding, usually how is this division between interest and dividend? What is it based on in terms of distribution to unit holders?
No, actually, it depends upon the interest, the loan given to the each SPVs, that the interest to each SPV has been calculated, and the dividend based on the cash flows they have. It has been divided from different SPVs. And if you see in the presentation, we have mentioned that there is a taxable dividend and the non-taxable dividend. So the non-taxable dividend is from one SPV and the taxable dividend is from the balance 4 SPVs, and the interest is the interest income from all the 5 SPVs put together.
Okay. Fair enough. Fine. Sure. Great. Thank you and all the best, ma'am.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rahul from ICICI Prudential. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, ma'am. Just one question with regards to the acquisition of the residual 26% stake from the sponsor. What are the timelines you're looking at for doing that, and also what is the kind of leverage that we'll be undertaking to be able to do that? Thank you.
Actually, right now, in the January 22, PVTL is completing the 5 years where the balance equity stake can be transferred. So it will be, as I said, it will be based on the valuation done for the balance 26%. And going forward, we will be counting 5 years from the DOCO of each SPV. Last is about 24, when the last SPV will be eligible to transfer his balance 26% to the trust.
January 20.
So in the within next January 22 to January 24, 2 years.
Okay. Okay, this will be spread out 2 years time frame.
Yeah.
Okay. And currently, are you doing any due diligence on any of the other projects, either belonging to the sponsor or outside the sponsor's portfolio for acquisition?
Currently, none is on the floor for acquisition by anybody. So, as and when the sponsor or any other company announces for their assets for monetization, we will definitely look into it.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. That's it from me.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Mohit Kumar from DAM Capital Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir, and congratulations on the listing and the first result. Two questions. So first, when you say the BOT, say you are moving from BOM to BOT. So the transfer should happen at a particular consideration. Is that consideration defined right now? Because you are similar to the other TBCB assets, right? Where they say that let's say, take example, something like owned by Sterlite. So they say that at the end of the asset, at the end of the life, the regulator will decide on the methodology for tariff for the next few years. So can you please comment on that?
Yeah, actually, I only said boot and boom in order to make it easy to understand. What might happen exactly is that we will be looking at various models like leasing the rights for the tariff. Now, what will happen is the asset, the SPV will be with POWERGRID only. What might happen is we are exploring, we are in the process of engaging a consultant to advise us on both the suitable model which will fulfill this condition of how to go about transferring for a limited period, transaction period of let us say 35 years, which is TSA period. So it may not exactly in terms of boot, which will require again a consideration at the end of the period. It may be that we will just retain the ownership of the asset with POWERGRID, but only lease out or in any other way assign the rights to the tariff which these SPVs are entitled to during the transaction period. That right to tariff we may be kind of leasing out to whoever is the buyer, including PGINVIT. So at this stage, it is not very clear as to what will happen. The only conceptual understanding we all must have clearly in mind is that the NNP directive says that unlike the IPA 5 assets which have been transferred forever on ownership transfer basis, future monetizations can only happen for a limited period. So more clarity will come during next 2-3 months, where we will be able to ready to monetize for the next year.
Yes, sir. Secondly, on the leverage, sir, of course, we are under leverage at this point of time. When do you think by what time frame we are looking to increase our leverage to the optimum level of 49%? And are we open to acquiring anything other than transmission asset? And related question is that what are we doing to source those new opportunities?
So actually, as on date, the trust has no loan on its own. So we have a lot of leverage to go for acquisition of future assets through debt funding. And as you have heard from the sponsor, they have a pipeline of projects going forward to be monetized. So that can be used. As of now, we are looking at the transmission assets, what we contemplating, and so in case any other transmission licensee is going for the monetization of their assets, we can use this leverage and for acquiring those assets.
Understood, sir. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Mahek Shah from Edelweiss Financial Service. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Mahek from Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance. So I had a couple of questions. One is regarding the remaining 26% that is to be transferred. So none of this is going to be applicable under boot, right? It will still happen, like ownership will be completely transferred for the remaining 26% stake on the existing assets.
Yes, the present acquisition is not on the basis of transfer. So balance 26% when we acquire, it will also be on the same terms. And this new policy would be applicable for the new monetization of assets.
Understood. So I think I'm repeating probably a question, but then are we planning to go up to 70% leverage at some point, which is allowed? And what is the kind of timeline? Because obviously that decides how the returns are going to be. So what is the kind of timeline where we look to leverage up the InvIT completely?
Actually, the leverage depends upon the opportunities available in the market. So right now we have a zero debt and we have a leverage to go up to 70, so which becomes the further monetization of about 20,000 crore appetite we have from the debt. So that we will gradually be going forward and using this leverage.
How much of this is expected to be from POWERGRID? Like how much asset monetization will probably happen in the next 2-3 years? Maybe from POWERGRID.
That I think sponsor has already given in his speech that for the next year the target is 7,500 and 2 years later than that is 15,000 each from the sponsor. So that is a clear-cut pipeline which has been targeted, which is a target has been given by Government of India to the sponsor. And then we will look at the other transmission licensees and we will see if we can participate and acquire their assets.
Understood. And this bidding will happen openly or do we have first rights on the sponsor monetization?
I think that the sponsor is in a better position to answer.
Yeah, we are kind of finalizing on the framework. However, two principles will anyway prevail. One is that it has to be through independent valuation in any case. And second, probably since PGINVIT is a related party, so we have to maintain an arm's length transaction. So these are the two underlying principles which will follow. Exact framework is being finalized. As I said, we are talking to a consultant to finalize on that. Based on these two principles, probably we'll be able to kind of offer to PGINVIT some first right or, those things can be considered. But it has to be based on a independent valuation and with a fair price mechanism.
Understood. Perfect. Thanks. I'll just get back in queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Hitesh Arora from Unifi Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. I think I have two questions. The first was already asked by someone. Just on the second one, I just wanted to understand in what instances does a tax-free dividend arise versus a taxable dividend, if you could please clarify for my understanding.
Actually, we had 5 SPVs, and when the choice for adopting the new tax regime came, in which the tax was lower but the dividend was taxable. So when we made the evaluation of these 5 SPVs, going forward we found that in one of the SPVs, that is PVTL, if we continue with the old tax regime, the total tax outflow would be less. So we retained the old tax regime for one of the SPVs, that is PVTL. But for the balance 4 SPVs, the new tax regime was beneficial from the tax outflow point of view. So that is why whatever dividend which is coming from PVTL is tax-free, and whatever dividend is coming from the balance 4 SPVs is taxable. So if you see in the presentation, the 0.52 rupees is coming from PVTL, which falls in the category of tax-free dividend, and balance 0.96 rupees is coming from the balance 4 SPVs, which is taxable.
Understood. Very clear. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Gopal from Big Tech Consulting. Please go ahead.
Hello. Hey, hi. Congratulations, ma'am, and the team for giving the fantastic results. Now, there are questions might be repeating, but still it makes sense for me to just get a clarification. During the discussion, I think it was told that, okay, we'll be able to maintain the DPU in the coming quarters. Was told, but in the red herring prospectus when it was published, I was just going through. I saw the rate curve is going down in 2 of the SPVs. Now, how is this going to be managed? Is what I want to understand, please.
Actually, there was little disturbance in our connection, so we couldn't hear your question very clearly. But I understand you were talking about the dividend curve, sustainable dividend, what we have declared.
Yeah, the DPU. Yeah. Distribution, whatever is happening per unit right now. I think how are you going to sustain it? Because I saw in red herring prospectus, it shows in 2 of the SPVs, actually the rate curve is going down. That's what I wanted to understand.
Yeah. Actually, these all SPVs have a predefined tariff. So the strategy we are having, as I said earlier, that we are looking at the future acquisitions also. So that we expect that as of now, the dividend would be in the range of higher single digit or lower 2 digit. We hope that we'll be able to maintain that.
Okay. Do you have any projections drawn, ma'am, keeping these things in mind? Whether can you give projection for the next 2 quarters for this? How much dividend how much distribution can happen per unit for the next 2 quarters of this year?
Participants, please stay connected. The line for the management dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay connected while we rejoin the management back to the call.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Participants, thank you for your patience. We have the line for the management reconnected, so you may go ahead.
Yes, I think.
Sorry for the brief interruptions. There was some trouble in our link. As I said, for what we estimate for the next 3 to 4 years, we would be able to surely maintain this type of dividend. And looking at the pipeline, what the sponsor is going to offer for next 3 to 4 years, and other monetization happening, looking at the long term also, we should be in a position to maintain the same dividend profile.
Okay. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, and best wishes. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Daxis Fernandez from Darshaw Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, a very good afternoon to all, and thank you for the opportunity for this question. My first question is that now the InvIT has issued certain debt to the SPVs, right? The internal debt. Now, since the payout has come in the form of interest and dividend, which is taxable and tax-free, the principal component, that is the return of capital, has not come in. So how is the amortization happening for the debt which is issued to the SPVs? So is that happening in this financial year, or is there a moratorium there? Because we have not got any payout in terms of the return of capital.
Yes, I'll ask my CEO to respond to this query.
Sure.
Right now, we have the sufficient amount of this taxable profit, and we are coming out with the dividend. And when this profitability will go down, then this refund of capital will come in picture, and this will be distributed in the form of return repayment of the debt.
Okay. A tentative timeline, sir, as to when is that expected? By when would that come in? Or
I think it will start after 2-3 years.
Okay, fine. So say FY25 onward.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one. I have another question in terms of the monetization. In fact, the Director of Finance had clearly mentioned that, 7,500 crore in FY23 is the pipeline. He's also mentioned that we have 8 operational SPVs. This is over and above the ones which are in the InvIT, right?
Yes.
You're right.
So we can have a target of, say, 7,500 crore of pipeline in FY23. And what would it be in FY24 and 25? I think there was a figure mentioned there. I just wanted a clarification.
The target, as mentioned by the sponsor in his speech, was 15,000 crore each year after this 23.
Okay, so we have a pipeline of, say, 7,500, 15,000, another 15,000, all to come into the InvIT only going forward.
For monetization.
Okay. And considering that we are at a 0% leverage right now, I think given the balance equity that can be, that will be done through debt. So my question is, will we look at an NCD option also for the POWERGRID Trust, or will it be a bank loan? Any thoughts there, ma'am? Because, the balance amount for the equity.
We are open for both. We are open for both.
Okay. I have a last question, ma'am. The valuation report, the valuer has valued our InvIT at 99.93. Though the valuation talks more about the asset valuation, where the calculation has been given, but when it comes to the InvIT valuation, there was a dip by 7 basis points. I was just trying to wrap my head around this, because if you see, the weighted average cost of capital has actually is reduced from the previous valuation. So if you can throw some light on how have we arrived on that 99.93 figure?
This 99.93 is calculated at the NAV of the trust. It depends on the valuation report of the valuer. So it consists of the enterprise value of the SPV as well as the cash and the net working difference of the trust comes to NAV.
Right. So because if I would look at it, that 9,100 crore was the value, the IPO, and at 100 rupees. Now that is dipped by 7 basis. So that value goes down a little bit.
9,100 crore is a 74% value of that enterprise value of those SPV.
Right.
24%. So.
Yeah, so I just want to understand why that 7 basis dip. How is it coming? If you can just.
No, 100 to
Is
99.
it to do with the time value of money or something, or is it because the revenue profile remains the same, we have not taken any additional leverage, so I don't expect it to move up substantially or go down substantially. But since we have come in at a figure and there's been a dip, just wanted to understand how did that work out?
Sir, I think there seems to be a bit confusion. Probably you are talking about the 7 BPs dip, 100 minus 99.93. Probably that is your question.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so the issue price was 100 rupees, but if you go through our FOD, the NAV at that point in time was 99.11.
Yes.
Right. So in fact, that 99.11 has gone up to 99.93. So there is an uptick rather than a lower tick, sir.
Okay.
So yeah, please.
Fine. I'll just look into it. So I'll have to look at the previous valuation report where they have given the NAV there as well in the IM, in the information memorandum.
That is mentioned in the FOD.
The valuation report is also there in the FOD as well as if you go through the dilution chapter in the FOD, you will find the calculation of the the NAV per unit also.
Fine. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sarvesh Gupta from Maximal Capital Private Limited. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and thanks a lot for taking my question. So, ma'am, first question is that at the InvIT, are you enjoying roughly the same lending or borrowing rates as POWERGRID?
We are expecting that because it is also AAA rated by all the 3 agencies, so we would be in a position to raise debt at the same level as POWERGRID.
I mean, in talks with the banks or such entities, are they willing to give you the same rates because it is being sponsored by POWERGRID?
We will be taking up formally when we have a pipeline of projects in the market. But we are expecting that we will be able to fetch the interest at the same rate as our sponsor POWERGRID.
Okay. And secondly, when we are talking about acquisitions now, given how this transmission space is where the project IRRs for acquisitions have come down a bit, but what can be the delta between the current borrowing rates at which you can be expected to borrow and the IRRs at which you will acquire the assets, given how asset acquisition has been happening in the current market?
It is for the projects going forward. The question is not very clear.
So, ma'am, you would be aware about the acquisitions which are happening in the transmission market, right? The kind of acquisitions which are happening and the IRRs at which that is happening. So I was trying to figure out the delta between the borrowing rate at which you can be expected to borrow, which is, let's say, similar to POWERGRID current borrowing rate, and the IRRs at which you would be expected to acquire some of these transmission assets.
Right now, it is very difficult to say what rate, on which rate we will going to take the loans or at which discount rate we are going to acquire the asset. So right now, it is difficult to say the delta. But whatever decision we will take, that will be in the interest of the unit holder. Whatever possible maximum delta we can.
Okay. And the second question is...
may I request you to come back in the question queue?
Sure.
Thank you. I request to all the participants, please restrict to 1 question per participant. If time permits, please come back in the question queue for a follow-up question. The next question is from the line of Saket Kapoor from Kapoor and Company. Please go ahead.
Yeah, namaskar, ma'am, and thank you for the opportunity. Just to dwell in a slightly different manner, ma'am, firstly, thanks for this maiden conference call. And we as retail investors and HNI would like to understand the product from the company side, just on the path of what are the risks associated, ma'am, and if investors are looking as an annuity product to park their funds, is this InvIT a proper instrument? And also on the taxation front, what are the tax arbitrage advantage investors can seek while their investment in the InVIT? And how is the price determined, as if the NAV was 99.93, but the current market price is at 121 rupees? So what factors attribute to these premium, ma'am? If this would be well, it would be good on your part, ma'am. Thank you.
So you have, I think, 3-4 questions from technical to financial to taxation, I suppose. So first, I'll take up your technical question. That how safe is the transmission business to invest in? So I'll say there are no input risk involved, and the tariff is based on the availability of the transmission system. And POWERGRID has been in the transmission business for a long time. The O&M is also being maintained for these assets also by POWERGRID. And as we've seen in the presentation, the availability is much above the threshold at which we realize. So from that perspective, we see it's a very safe investment with the return, very stable returns over a lifetime of the asset with very less risk involved, or rather no risk involved as far as the input cost is concerned. So that is first aspect. Now for the taxation benefit, maybe I can ask my CEO to respond on the benefits the unit holder will accrue.
The taxation of this unit holder depend on the nature or the type of the investor. I suppose in case of a retail investor, there may be return in the form of interest, taxable dividend, and tax-free dividend, and return of the capital. In case of interest, it is taxable. In case of non-taxable dividend, it is tax-free. And taxable dividend is taxable dividend, and return on capital is, again, there is no tax on return of the capital. This is the tax aspect.
Thank you.
And regarding your investment decision, and market price, the market price is driven by the market, and we cannot comment on those subjects. And NAV is already given in our CFS.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vipul Shah from Sumangal Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi. There may be some repetitions, but I want clarification. So, first point is what will happen after 35 years? Means ownership of these assets will rest with the trust, as is the case in IndiGrid, or it will the ownership will go back to POWERGRID. And the second question is regarding distribution. You said high single digit or low double digit. That is total distribution, or that is only distribution? That is only dividend.
No, it is. I'll ask. You have you have put 2 questions. Now, as per the present monetization, the assets remain with the trust. Now, after 35 years, it needs to be seen that these assets need some capital investment, and how the tariff would be determined, that will be in the hands of regulator. And because the license is given for 25 years, extendable by 10 years, and then it will be done what further capital and how the tariff would be determined. So owner would be the trust only for the monetization, which is currently the SPVs which are in the trust. Now, what you said about the distribution, I think it is the total distribution put together, the interest, the taxable dividend, and the non-taxable dividend.
So now for 4.5 months you have given 4.5 rupees. So roughly, can we assume that it should be around the same rate, around 1 rupees per unit? That should be the distribution.
Going forward, we can see that's why I said the higher single digit or lower 2 digits. So we can assume in the same fashion.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of KU from PNB MetLife. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I just had a question on the, for example, the incremental acquisition that we are looking to do. So what would be the governance framework in terms of valuation at which these would be transferred, or let's say the shareholder approval requirements for these new acquisitions? And related question, if you could walk us through the broad numbers on the assets we acquired in terms of the IPO, the total cost incurred for the creation of these 5 assets, and what price it was sold to the InvIT. So what was the price to book multiple here?
Regarding your first question, it will be the valuation for the balance 26% will be done, and what are the statutory approvals are required to be taken, that will be taken from the unit holders or otherwise before acquisition of that 26%. And the next question.
Ma'am, even in terms of, let's say, the pipeline assets that we have, what would be the valuation policy there in terms of the price that is being paid?
No.
Or the shareholder approval requirement?
As per SEBI regulation, any will happen before this valuation is required. So this is the regulation part. The valuation is to be done for any acquisition, either for 56% or a fresh acquisition. Number second, we have a policy. We have a policy for any acquisition above the threshold limit of 5%. The shareholder approval, unit holder approval will be seeked. So, as per this above 5% acquisition, we will seek the approval of the unit holder.
Understood. And just the broad numbers on the IPO assets that were acquired, the cost incurred for these assets, and the price it was sold to the InvIT, the price to book multiple?
The initial 5 assets, whatever the trust has acquired, the cost of those 5 assets around 7,200 crore.
And the cost is borne by the sponsor.
And those costs was borne by the sponsor.
Right. And the price would be the price at which it was sold to the InvIT?
For 74%, we have paid 9,100 total.
Okay, understood. Right. Sure. And I think, if I can slip one last question on the impairment hit that we see in the P&L for the half-year period. Can you throw some light on that?
If you are talking about the impairment at the CFS, which is mainly on account of the impairment of the goodwill, which is amounting to about 3,530 million, and the additional depreciation of 462.18 million on account of fair valuation of the PPE and the intangible asset between the date of acquisition and the reporting period. It is at the CFS level.
So, ma'am, this was due to some change in assumptions, or how should we read this?
No, this is not. This is not on the assumption. This is as per the valuation report.
Thank you. A request to all the participants, please restrict to one question per participant. Next question is from the line of Swarnim Maheshwari from Edelweiss Financial. Please go ahead.
Yes, I have just one question. So what's actually going to be our guiding principle for the future growth? Is it going to be, the IRR that we are looking at from an HTM perspective, which is hold to maturity, or we are likely to look at it from the the near term yield accretion. How is it going to be?
Swarnim, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, Professor sir, I was asking what's going to be our guiding principle when we are actually acquiring any asset. Are we going to look it from the perspective of IRR accretion from a hold to maturity perspective, or from the near term yield accretion perspective?
No, it is a long term perspective. IRR on the long term perspective.
Long term perspective. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pratik Kothari from Unique PMS. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity again. Ma'am, just one question. As an investor, what would our current IRR be? Maybe at IPO price?
How much is it? 100 rupees.
1 rupee per month.
1 rupee per month. See, as I think in the previous question, we have distributed about 4.5 rupees for a period of 4.5 months. So it's likely working out to be 1% per month. So we are looking in the
ma'am,
same
this would be a downward sloping curve, right? So we'll be able to manage this 12 rupees maybe for the near term, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever that number might be, and eventually it will drop down. So over the life, what would the IRR be?
No. After this 4 or 5 years, we are contemplating some new acquisition, and after this new acquisition, this downtrend
will be compensated.
Try to compensate it, so that the line will dividend will be maintained.
No, I understand this, sir. It's just I'm asking from the perspective that today, if we are investing where 74% of it is which we own, and eventually over next 2 years we'll own 100% of it. So for this 5 asset, what is the IRR that an investor gets when he or she invests in the InvIT? The additional acquisition is different. I mean, it will come in the future, but for now, would that number be about 8-odd%? Is that understanding correct?
Participants, please stay connected. Line for the management dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay connected. I'll rejoin the management back to the call. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We have the line for the management reconnected. So you may go ahead.
Right. Just to come again, I just wanted to understand the IRR that for the current 5 assets that we have as an investor, if I come in, maybe at today's price or at IPO price, whatever, what would my IRR be? I understand that we'll be acquiring assets in the future. I also understand that currently we are completely unlevered and we'll be leveraging our balance sheet going into the future, and hence that would boost our IRR. But as of today, what would that number be?
So one moment, the line for the management dropped. Participants, please stay connected. So you're reconnecting, you may go ahead.
I trust I'm audible, ma'am.
Hello. Can we have the question, please?
Yes. Ma'am, my question is, I understand that we'll be making certain acquisitions into the future. I also understand that we are unlevered currently, and we'll be leveraging a balance sheet going into the future, and that would boost up our IRR. But as an investor, if I'm coming in today, for the 5 assets that we have, what would be our IRR?
Today, if you calculate this IRR at the price of
122.
Suppose if you are buying at the 122 and this IRR will come, your rate of return will come around
100 rupees and no, sir, you can share it at 100 rupees and every investor can calculate for themselves, right? If someone is coming at 110 or 120.
IRR we have not calculated. Yield can be calculated right now. That is 9.8.
Fine. The reason I ask this is because for an investor, more than yield or DPO, IRR is the most important if someone is coming for long term. So maybe at least on the next call we'll be able to share this.
No, sir. In our this offer document, we have already given our revenue stream and all this detail we have already mentioned. You can calculate.
Okay. Fine. Fair enough. Sure. And I trust we'll be doing this analyst call at the end of every quarter?
Yes.
Yes, we will try
okay,
to.
Great. Thank you, ma'am, and all the best.
Thank you very much. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Rahul Modi for closing comments.
From ICICI Securities, we would like to thank the entire senior management of POWERGRID Infrastructure InvIT for sparing this time for this very interactive call. I will hand over the call to you, ma'am, for final comments, and then we can close it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rahul and your team. And thanks again to all the participants for attending this call. It was indeed very heartening to see such good participation in today's first ever earnings call by PGINVIT. We have envisioned PGINVIT to achieve a focused business model with operational efficiency to ensure returns, while capitalizing on value accretive growth through acquisitions and an efficient capital structure. We believe that with this strategy, we should be able to provide consistent, stable, and visible returns to our unit holders. Thank you once again, and we look forward to speaking to you on a regular basis. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. On behalf of ICICI Securities Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect your lines. Thank you.
Yeah.